Hi, it's Louis Paul, and welcome to another Colors of Prog. This is season 2, episode 1, or for those who've been following, real episode 30. But actually, season 2, episode 1. We're going to call it that for now. So, I'm going to tackle Yes, the band. And I mentioned them over the past year. If you're watching us, you're very familiar with Yes. There are probably a few of you who are not crazy about them, but if you're into progressive rock, you're watching this for a reason, right? So let's start out with they've been at it for 52 years, and there's 21 studio albums and 22 live official albums, 12 in the last 10 years. Think about that. Um, there's also various remixes, repackaging, but we're not going to tackle that. So, what I plan to do is speak of the up to a particular point, up to about, I believe, 1980. So, it's not going to drag you out, not going to bore you. It's like my own thoughts. It's all very positive. They are one of my favorite bands of all time, and I listened to this material a lot anyway. Normal life, everyday thing, amongst a lot of other music. But I didn't want to give anyone the wrong impression that I did not like Yes, because I did speak of some things over the past year that mixes on certain live albums, uh, some recordings not being as much good as I wanted them to be personally, but everyone has their own experience, right? That's what music and cinema is all about, your own experience. And uh, going to the movies, going to the cinema, watching something in your home with other people, going to someone else's home, that's a shared experience. With music, you're in a theater, you're in a club, so that's a shared experience. But when you're home, that's a personal experience. And everybody remembers the days of old school turntables, headphones. I mean, some music sounded fantastic on headphones. Still does. Uh, Needless to say, so the point you were trying to make is like it's my own personal thoughts and experiences and ideas and suggestions. And I hope over the past year, I turned you on to some music you did not know about and spoke of some music that you may not have listened to, but decided to give it a shot. So, this is the first Yes album. Pretty cool. It's an original pressing. So we have Bill Bruford, Tony Kaye, Peter Banks, Chris Squire, John Anderson. I spelled John, John, which is really interesting, um, on the back cover. So we have a Birds cover. Actually, Crosby and Stills and Nash covered the song called "I See You." It's a Beatles cover, Every Little Thing, and it's just pure golden harmonies. Um, it's not what you think Yes would eventually sound like. It's a band finding its way. It's not hard rock of the heavy sounds of the time period. This is 1969, but certainly they stood out as being different. The cool thing about this pressing album cover is that they're posed in front of the cemetery, and it was replaced by a red, blue, and black logo that just said yes. And I like the album. Would it be a go-to? I'm not sure, but it's quite good. It's very enjoyable. And as you can see, the marketing for Atlantic had a large summation by Tony Wilson from Melody Maker on the back. I was like, these are the hip guys and blah blah blah. They used to do this a lot back in the day. The first Yes album. The next one was Time in the Word, 1970. So, the curious thing about this, the back cover, take a good look at that. So, the back cover has John Anderson, Chris Squire, Tony Kaye, Peter Banks, and Bill Bruford. But the front cover has Steve Howe. So, by the time this was released in the United States in 1970, Peter Banks was out of the band. And that's another story. Whether he was asked to leave by the band as an organization or things didn't work out, there's a lot written about Yes over the years. You all know the story by now. So I'm not here to go into all that. But it's curious that the Time of the Word does have a group photo here of Steve Howe in the band, although he's not actually on the album. So we have here No Opportunity Necessary, No Experience Needed, the Richie Havens song, Every Day's Stephen Stills song, and the rest are John Anderson and Chris Squire tunes. And the Richie Havens song is pretty cool. It has like this keyboard flourish in it. Tony Kaye was doing keyboards on this. And it reminds me, there's a part of it reminds me of Elmer Bernstein, the composer for films. He did The Big Country, The Magnificent Seven. And I mean, it's a fun album. It's probably a lot more, a recording you would go to a lot more often than the first Yes album, only because we have Astral Traveler on this, which is only credited to John Anderson, but I'm sure it was a group effort. So there's just lots of good music on here. So this is Time in the Word, the second Yes album, but still a band finding their way. So by the third album, called, guess what? The Yes album, Steve Howe is officially replaced Peter Banks, and nearly every song is wonderful. Probably their first true progressive rock masterpiece. 1971, what can I say? What's on here? Yours is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper, Worm, I've Seen All Good People, which is, portioned out. Your Move, All Good People, Perpetual Change. And the band here is John Anderson, Chris Squire, Steve Howe, Tony Kaye, and Bill Bruford. So Bill Bruford's still in the band at this point. And this actually is the 2018 Steven Wilson remix of this, which is quite nice. I have the original of the Yes album, and the Steven Wilson remix is pretty terrific. So highly recommend it. If you don't have this, you should get it. So next we have, pardon me, Fragile. And if you notice something on the Steven Wilson remix box set of vinyl, is that Roger Dean seemed to tweak the original designs that he did on the original vinyl albums. So, for example, the those who remember Fragile was much more of a blue cover than the Earth and this kind of cylindrical thing with the flower thingies. And the remix for the Steven Wilson box set is more black. And I found that really interesting. So Fragile. So post Strobes, Rick Wakeman replaces Tony Kaye on keyboards. And I would say until the mid 1980s, Roundabout was, which is on here, of course, was their biggest hit. Also has Long Distance Runaround and Heart of the Sunrise, and The Fish, which is the big Chris Squire tune. He would have his solo moment during live shows by performing The Fish. South Side of the Sky is also on this and remained a deep cut for fans for years. America, the Simon and Garfunkel cover, which would become much loved over the years, appeared on a electro remaster of Fragile, which featured some alternate tracks. And it could also, America could also be heard on one of those label samplers. If everyone remembers the late 60s, 1970s, well, not everyone, some of us, um, uh, labels, Warner Brothers, Atlantic used to do it a lot, and they would call them crazy things, and they would cherry pick some bands, and they would pop a couple of tunes or alternate tracks or songs that didn't make it to albums. So this was on an Atlantic sampler called The New Age of Atlantic, apropos. And so America, which was actually recorded in the sessions for Fragile, shows up on that sampler, which I have. So, I mean, it's a terrific album, really. Probably got the most airplay. There were single edits for radio of a few of these songs, most specifically Roundabout. And everyone knows Roundabout. This was the band that really pushed them over into the top echelon of touring acts, and so they just suddenly shot out there. So, Close to the Edge. Here's another interesting album cover. Everyone remembers, well, Yes fans remember that the original Close to the Edge album cover, which I have, was green. And Roger Dean kind of tweaked this a little bit, I believe, for the Steven Wilson remix. Why, I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason. There's a reason for everything, isn't there? But the inside pretty much remains the same. So these, by the way, were 180 gram vinyl. These remixes were done in 2016 and 2018. It took 2 years to complete the box, and it was released in 2018 and 2021. And now it's out of print. So I mean, you might still find a few of these. So Close to the Edge. It's a bit different. Same band as on Fragile, which is John Anderson, Bill Bruford, Steve Howell, Chris Squire, and Rick Wakeman. But it's different. I mean, side one is the Close to the Edge suite, which runs about 20 minutes long. It also features the songs Total Mass Retain, I Get Up, I Get Down, Side 2, and You and I, which is another suite, which has Siberian Quattro attached down to it. So it's actually two songs, because And You and I and Siberian Quattro are separate songs. So there's actually only three songs on this. One's an album long side. Crazy shit. Um, really, they went from doing popular radio hits to where I'm sure everybody was pulling hair like, how can we send this to radio stations and do an edit, a 4 minute, 3 minute edit single when a song's 20 minutes long? So this was also involved in the birth of album-oriented rock, where if you listen, especially late at night, you would get the side. Close to the Edge is a great album, and it's one of my personal favorites. Probably more than Fragile, because I like the more experimental side to it. Now, next we have Tales from Topographic Oceans, which is a double album set. And we got a little crazy with the liner notes in this gatefold sleeve, but that's okay. It's all good. So Bill Bruford left to join King Crimson, I believe, and was replaced by Alan White on drums. And Alan White had played with the Alan Price Band on 3 albums from 67 to 68. Then he joined John Lennon on Live Peace in Toronto and Imagine. And Alan White also appears on the Live Side 3 Live Jam on Sometime in New York City, released in 72. He's also on George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, released in 1970. You know, that big, huge box set. This is a behemoth of progressive sound. Some people were not quite sure they really dug this. And this was like Yes fans at the time. And this is a lot of progressive rock fans, because it was a very different thing. A lot more classical motifs, some plain weirdness, some art rock. Many compare it, maybe more favorably, to Close to the Edge. 4 songs over 2 vinyl discs, something of a rarity back then for studio recordings. This came out in 1974, I would say. And no, 72, sorry. Well, 73, 74. And the only other bands doing double live albums at that time, there were not many of them. You had the Humble Pie doing a live at the Fillmore East, and that was a live album. And you had Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street, 1972, released a few months before this. That was all studio work. This is a studio album. What's on here? Revealing Signs of God, The Ancient Giants Under the Sun, Ritual. They all became fan favorites over the years. The dawn of FM radio had a field day, again, figure out how to play this damn thing. Because, again, there was no way to do a single edit. There's no roundabout here. And what did it all mean lyrically? Well, put it this way. It's a collision of mystical, cosmic, multi-religious imagery, colliding with maybe Von Daniken theories with a Tolkien feel. How's that? You can quote me on that one. One of my personal favorites is Tales from Topographic Oceans. And it's almost like, how do you talk about this album? How do you discuss it? It's very unique in itself. And a band that would be ever changing for sure. So we go to a live album. Yes, songs. It's an original, so you have to forgive the appearance. So, the pretty wild stuff going on here. It was a triple album release, and it just opened and opened and opened and opened into some crazy Roger Dean thing. Love Roger Dean, but he tends to repeat motifs a lot. But this is quite nice. Suitable for framing. You could buy several of these back in the day. Always liked this one, which you didn't see too much in post art. Probably called the greatest of all live symphonic rock albums. There was even a truncated, poorly mixed, the audio, concert movie, which eventually became a well-remembered midnight movie. If everyone remembers the dawn of midnight movies, it's from 1973. Your local fun movie theaters back in the day, they had mono sound, and they would be playing this movie, and the shortened version of this 3 volume set, and everybody said, "Well, it sounded like crap," but we would all smoke a lot of stuff, and so that was part of the charm of watching Yes songs. The film, Yes songs live, did not really capture the feeling, the aura of the band. And it actually is hard to capture. Yes, it looked like a bunch of guys just standing around, and they're not a band who moves around the stage a lot. So a lot of people didn't get it, but the Yes fans did get it. It wouldn't be remastered for years, and now suddenly it's been out of print for a while. But it could be wrong. It's possible it got remastered yet again, or is tied up in court. Who knows? Um, so, the original 3 LP version features Bill Bruford on 3 songs: Perpetual Change, Long Distance Runaround, and again the Chris Squire fan favorite, The Fish. And Alan White appears on all the other songs. This is recorded live on tour in 1972. So Bruford was with the band, and then mid-tour opted to go with King Crimson, whereas they hired Alan White. And so the album itself and the CD reissue is actually quite good sounding. I actually prefer the warmer sound of the vinyl to the compact discs. It feels a little kind of like the sound was compressed. So I guess to get more onto less sides. Now we have one of the outer ones, Relayer, 1974. So Rick Wakeman left the band right after the 1973 tour, and for a while the band rehearsed as a 4-piece, I understand, without a keyboard player, and auditions began. They even auditioned Vangelis, who would later on work with John Anderson as a duo, and then they rehearsed with Patrick Moraz, and he was asked to join in the band. And Moraz came from a lot of session work, and he was actually in a band post Keith Emerson version of The Nice, which was eventually called Refugee. And Moraz had a different sound from Wakeman, and even Tony Kaye before him. Sort of experimental, jazzy. maybe art rock inspired. And the sounds coming from Relayer, there's only three tunes, including the chaotic Gates of Delirium at 22 minutes long. This is unbelievably just a single album, which I'm sure was blowing people's minds. Great Roger Dean cover there. Um, this initially makes the album a bit of a different animal entirely in the Yes canon, and not for the first time. Over the years, there's been reassessments have compared it favorably to topographic oceans and close to the edge. And this version of Yes would tour for the next 2 to 3 years, and Gates of Delirium and parts of Ritual from an August 1976 show would appear in a double live Yes shows. Um, they're at the time second only official live album released in 1980. And I wanted to show you Yes shows. And this is interesting because um, Patrick Moraz appears on Ritual, and as I mentioned, a few other songs from when Yes was touring for Relayer, and then he's no longer in the band. Rick Wakeman rejoins, which is interesting in itself. This is a band where members come and go and go and come. So we had which I misplaced because I was listening to this um, yesterday, the day before I recorded this, to Going for the One. I listened to the vinyl album, and I was listening to the remastered CD, which had extra tracks. And I kind of misplaced it in my making notes period. So anyway, 1977, after a brief hiatus of only a few months, rehearsals began for Going for the One. Mraz was told, according to him, that Rick Wakeman would be invited to return to the band while touring for Relayer. And Going for the One's a pretty unique album. It's again another one of those splits fans. It has three songs approaching a length of about 4 to 6 minutes, which for Yes is pretty short, and only one epic length tune, Awaken, at a brief 16 minutes. But this sounds like a newly uh, invigorated Yes. After Relayer in '74, most of the band members recorded solo albums. Chris Squire did Fish Out of the Water in '75. John Anderson did Elias of Sun Hillow in 1976, considered his best. Um, and Going for the One is a departure for the band. Um, it has a, again, I wish I had it in front of me, it has a translucent Yes logo. But the album cover is the first time in a while that Yes used a photo image, this time of the rear of a naked man facing a kind of tilted skyscraper milieu. And that artwork is supplied by Hypnosis, pardon me, who worked on many Pink Floyd album covers. Going for the One has always been an album I really liked. And it features Going for the One, Wondrous Stories, Parallels, personal favorites of mine. Um, and even I like the chaotic topographic oceans throwback, Awaken, one of the better mid-period mid-period albums from Yes. So I was going to discuss Tomato, and then I recalled that on the last program I did, pardon me again, I did mention Tomato. And the interesting thing about this album and the CD reissue by Rhino, Electro Rhino, has like 9 extra tracks, including a very interesting CSN, Crosby, Stills and Nash flavored tune called Countryside. Um, it's good. Like, oh, by the way, there's another Hypnosis cover. As long as we're staying into the thing here, as you see, it's like the translucent yes, the tomato, and Hypnosis did this kind of weird image of a guy skewering a tomato, band on the back. And Rick Wakeman's in the band. And what I found really interesting about this album's Don't Kill the Whale was, to me, after many listenings recently, the standout track and the aforementioned Countryside. But it just sounds like, I don't know, these were songs that just did not officially have, they weren't done yet. It always seemed to me that the songs on Tomato just like weren't finished. And maybe there was something going on with the band at the time, which there was. Anyway, so I didn't want to end this generally very positive. I really liked all these Yes albums, and they're, if you don't own them, maybe I said something and make you want to pick up one or two of these. But Drama, which I'm going to recap when I do a part 2 of this some point down the road, Drama has a different thing altogether. Oh, this is a very rare original pressing of Drama because it had this nice Roger Dean insert. Where the band changed entirely, and John Anderson was no longer in the band. We have Jeff Downs and Trevor Horn, who are in the band Buggles, who had the first video song and video ever played at MTV called Video Killed the Radio Star. So Jeff Downs and Trevor Horn from the Buggles joined Steve Howe, Chris Squire, and Alan White in Yes, and the album's called Drama. There's only 6 tunes on the original album, but on the Electro Rhino, now out of print, I'm not sure what the deal was, compact disc from 2004, there were, about 10 extra songs that were recorded during this period, and they went back in and just did some cleaning up. I really like Drama, and I'm actually going to speak of this more and why John Anderson was not in the band at this point, but he came back. He always does. And there was a point in time where John Anderson and Trevor Horn were singing at the same band at the same time. And so that's our classic Yes look. A little bit longer than I tend to do these things for, but I just felt like wanted to make a good statement that I really like the band, and except for Tomato, which not the best of let's say Yes Mark One. There are interesting things going on with Drama, enough that there's a Yes Mark II, there's more going on to come. And I'll be dealing with that much later on in the year. But anyway, thank you for watching the Colors of Prog. I hope it didn't blow your mind and that you are staying well and staying safe. And thank you for watching.